and like just to sour him on the project entirely.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I think that scene, just for like, I think it should have cut from Norton's little smirk at the end, and then went to credits, and then the scene with Thunderbolt and Stark. I think that would have done better if it would have been mid credit or end credit.
Yeah,
because it's such a like weird cut to it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like that expression on his face that would have been more effective as just a smash cut to black.
Yeah.
And then roll the credits. Yeah, I think you're right.
All right. So speaking of that end scene with Stark and Thunderbolt, why did Stark go to Thunderbolt about the Hulk? Like, I know you talked about how you wanted the Abomination. There was that little digital series.
Yeah, and I guess in terms of the narrative of the film itself, like I think you're right. Like it doesn't make a ton of sense.
He's
does it?
He's downing that I think the drink is called the Hulk, because.
Oh, is he drinking an Incredible Hulk?
Trivia, yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's so funny. I did not know that.
But like he already proved to himself and to others that there's no way to control him. That only Bruce can control the Hulk because they're together.
Yeah,
they're the same.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I don't know that it really does make a ton of sense. I mean, like why would he be going to Ross about putting together a team? Like, yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I think it's just there to show like this is happening at the same. This is in the same universe as the Iron Man movie. Like Tony Stark lives in this universe. Yeah,
like it would have made more sense if the part where he kind of talked about how the hardware seems to always work better. It works better than the software, quote unquote. Yeah. But if he would like ask him, like, are you still tracking Bruce? Because I want him, or we want him for this project that you're not a part of.
Huh. Yeah, maybe that would have worked out better. I don't know, but
can't go back and change it.
Can't now. It's locked
unless if you're George Lucas.
Fortunately,
yeah.
Fortunately, we don't have to worry about him anymore. I saw a really interesting documentary. I think it's probably still on Netflix. It's called The People versus George Lucas.
Really?
Yeah, and it talks, and it's totally academic. It's absolutely irrelevant at this point because all of the questions that it asks like don't matter anymore because now George Lucas doesn't control Star Wars anymore. But it's all about like how, just about the mess that he made of the prequels. And what's really interesting, and basically I think the thrust of that documentary is to say that like when he was making episode 4, he was sort of like the upstart visionary, like artistic guy who was like fighting with the studio to do what he wanted to do. And, Star Wars nearly like failed as a production, like any number of times, with the budget and the shooting schedule, because they were working a lot in Tunisia and they had to deal with like sandstorms and like all that stuff. It was a very, very troubled production.
Yeah.
But so like for the original trilogy, like he had like this vision that he was trying to realize, and the studios were like reining him in and keeping him from going like full on George Lucas with everything that he wanted to do. So then fast forward to 1998 and Phantom Menace is about to come out. Like, and we're, that's been in production. Like now, like with the prequels, now he's freaking George Lucas. Right. And now he can do whatever he wants. And there is nobody to rein him in and pull him back and keep him from like going totally gonzo on this stuff. And
that's what happens when Bruce lets the Hulk do whatever he wants.
Massive destruction and tears. So many tears. And occasionally bad CGI of characters that we don't even want.
Yeah. Or extended scenes for characters we don't need to know about.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So yeah, it was an interesting documentary, but
I saw as a meme, so it's probably true. They showed all the different posters for the Star Wars. They always had the villain looming in the background.
Oh, interesting.
In the poster, supposedly for this next Star Wars that's coming out, it's Luke Skywalker that's looming in the background.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, see, there was a fan theory circulating before The Force Awakens came out that Luke was kind of going to be a villain in that film, and there are theories out there saying that at the end of Return of the Jedi, he actually did turn to the dark side, and we just haven't seen like the actual fallout of that.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting theory, but I think it doesn't really hold together because it's contingent upon Luke simply having lied when he says, I won't join the dark side. It's like, but actually I have. And it just doesn't make any sense, really.
Yeah, or even later when, Ben, he's training Ben up, then he flips to the dark side.
Right.
Well, I can't do this anymore.
Well, we don't, and see, we don't know, we don't really know anything about that yet. Hopefully we'll get some actual interesting answers.
Maybe he's
what?
He said maybe he's Snoke. Is that the guy's name?
Maybe Luke is Snoke?
Yeah. Like it's a vision. It's like a mental projection that he's doing.
That would be really weird. It may be interesting, but very, very strange.
Maybe.
Yeah. Like I kind of prefer the idea at this point, and we'll see where it goes. I kind of prefer the idea that there's gonna be sort of a new type of, not Jedi per se, but like a new kind of like Force sensitive order to come out of the Jedi Order that's going to realize that the distinction between the light and dark side might be an artificial one, and that it's more about like the individual person, and not like that, if you use Force lightning, then you must be a Sith, kind of thing. And that's actually one of the things that the sort of the evil Luke theory is predicated on as well, is that like he uses the Force choke thing on the Gamorrean guard at the beginning of Return of the Jedi, and that had only been shown as like a Sith thing to do also. Right. So, but there's this idea of like not the light side of the Force and the dark side of the Force, but of the living Force. Right. Is something that was introduced in the Star Wars extended universe throughout the 90s and 2000s, especially in the New Jedi Order series, and Han and Leia's son Jason in that sort of comes to this realization that it doesn't, like there's more to the Force than just the light and the dark side.
Right, so it'd be kind of like Hulk and Abomination. Like you have this power, but ultimately what you do with that power comes down to the person.
Sure, yeah, that's a place we could bring it back to. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, I guess if you want to think about it that way, that makes sense with everything else we've been saying. Then okay.
I will say that. I probably won't mind if the ninth Star Wars is actually also the third part of the Cloverfield series. Just saying.
Yes, well, now that we do have like the official word that J.J. Abrams is going to be directing episode 9, I was sort of got into a little bit of a kerfuffle on Facebook last week. We're going to plug Tyler Smith in More Than One Lesson because he's sort of a guy who's helping us out here on this podcast, and we're sort of releasing these episodes under the umbrella of More Than One Lesson. And he wrote a little piece about the Last Jedi trailer that came out, and sort of put forth the idea that it's possible that we could be getting like some oversaturation of Star Wars. You know, because between Return of the Jedi and Phantom Menace, it was like 20 years almost. Right. And then in between Revenge of the Sith and The Force Awakens, it was also a good long time. It was over a decade.
Yeah.
And he was just sort of wondering if having so much Star Wars material being put out so rapidly could sort of diminish the overall, not necessarily importance, but you just sort of run into this the law of diminishing returns on it. Right. Yeah. If you had, you've got these two trilogies, and now you got a third one coming out, but it's like just the amount of material is ramping up so much.
Well, The Force Awakens came out, a couple years ago?
Yeah, that was
last
November.
Year we had Rogue One. And
right.
This year we're going to have The Last Jedi. So, yeah.
And then next year we'll have the Han Solo movie. Oh, and the year after that we'll have Episode 9.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then probably the year after that we'll have another one as well.
Ewok movie, who knows?
Could be. But yeah. Maybe it will be an Ewok movie. But, maybe it'll be the what's the little like thing that was in the Last Jedi trailer? The Porg? Is that what it's called? The little fuzzy penguin thing.
That'd be cool. That's the next cartoon series, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe Tyler Smith's onto something there. Because the diehards will be excited and watch all of it.
Right. Well, and that's what this guy was. We sort of got into this argument over is like, oh no, there's been tons of Star Wars stuff, for a long, long time. And I said, well, yes, there's been lots of novels and graphic novels and video games, but the people to whom those really mean anything is like that's a very, very small population that you and I are part of.
Mass market,
right? It's none of these were actually like wide release, like major motion pictures.
Right.
And if it's not a movie, then it's gonna mean a lot less in the culture at large. Right. It's like, well, that's not my world. I'm like, well, your world is probably maybe just consists of your mom's basement. Like, I don't know.
Your world is a world in the universe where like the movie is shot out to the universe. The books are shot out to your world.
Right.
There's no trailers on YouTube for the book.
Right.
What you subscribe to tells you about the new books coming out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So anyway. Yeah. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and start wrapping up that conversation about the Hulk. Because totally that's what we've been talking about in a very, very focused manner.
We just wanted everyone to know how interrelated the Hulk is to every aspect of life.
Well, now that Disney owns everything, maybe the Hulk is related to every aspect of life.
Yeah.
Man, I remember when that deal was about to go down, or when the deal had gone down, because like I didn't know that it was in the works at all, and I don't know how many people really did know that it was in the works. All I knew was like there was the announcement. It was like, hey, now Disney owns Marvel. And like a bunch of Marvel fanboys were like, oh no, what's going to happen to Deadpool now? Because like, yeah.
Yeah, I still never saw Deadpool. I really have no desire to either. But
yeah, you know, that movie